I've got a bad feeling that I'm going to agree with this video. I might have said a racial slur if it's bad enough. I want to know which words are racist so I can say them more, obviously.
She proceeds to say this, or is it he or she? I really have no idea.
They?
They?
No. Now what?
I'm sorry, right? I'm going to have to side with the fellas here. Can you imagine getting Rosenbaum tatted on you? Hey, I don't have to imagine. You're acting like a bunch of white N-words.
This is basically an attempt to give words almost metaphysical causality.
Yeah, well, I
What?
think his semantics. Studying recently or something.
Nerds.
Yeah, so
I kind of look at it and I think, well, yeah, I'm going to keep saying those words. I don't care. Can I say hood? Do I have the H pass? Vitoids are good enough at coming up with slurs on their own. Yeah, thrown under the bus is probably more common anyway. But wait until you find out where that's from. Oh, I just outwoked you. Let's get into this. I was looking for some stuff to watch, for Mitoid stuff, for a little change of pace. I watched quite a few other bits and pieces recently, and I came across this video. Problematic words you might want to use more often, okay? Now, I'm going to keep it real with you, okay? I'm going to keep it real with you. I've got a bad feeling that I'm going to agree with this video. I mean, I'm going to agree with these two, okay? Because, honestly, I've seen enough of those stupid graphs of, like, here's a bunch of fairly innocuous words that you shouldn't use to last a lifetime, okay? Honestly, I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. That's where the whole tick box meme came from, okay? So, by the time this video is finished and we finish reacting to it, I might have said a racial slur if it's bad enough, okay? So, we'll see, though. We'll see. Maybe there's a reasonable point there that can be made. Maybe these people will really mess up covering it. So, we'll see. Let's watch. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right.
I'd like to discuss some words that we might want to use a little bit more from now on.
Based.
So Canadian news broadcasts, if we get this article up here, CBC have compiled a small list of words which they deem may be hurtful to various groups in virtue of their specific...
Okay, straight away, listen. Words and phrases you may want to think twice about using. I mean, it's kind of like, it's not as egregious as it could be, okay, to give it some credit. It's not like it's saying, you must never use these words. You cannot use these words. These words are racist. Or something like that, right? It's just kind of like, hey, here's a few words that you might want to think about using, or whatever, right? I don't know. It's a bit cringe, right? But to me, I would look at this article and kind of roll my eyes, okay? I kind of roll my eyes, and that would be the end of it, right? But obviously these people need content, so they've decided to moan about it in a video for 18 minutes. So let's see what they've got to say for themselves, though, okay?
Historical and cultural content. If we scroll down a little bit, we can actually see some examples. I don't think this is all of them.
Those are all my favourite words, to be honest. So yeah, I'm going to have some trouble to stop using these. Oh my god, they got lame on there. Oh no. Oh no. They've got lame on there. No!
Grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in.
Lame. Spirit animal. Tone deaf.
Yes, all of
Black sheep.
All of these words were submitted by their readers and journalists who are
Blackmail.
black, indigenous, and people of colour.
Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, what they've done is decided to run these words by
This is the problem when you ask people, individuals, what you don't like, and people have got personal things. They might be based on some historical thing, but people have got, like, personal, like, issues, like little issues with this, that, and the other. And obviously, my whole take on this is, if you've got an issue with a particular word or phrase and you don't like it being uttered, that's totally legit, and you can request, you know, to your friends or whatever that they don't say it. But stuff like this, like more broadly, you know, I don't like this idea of like, hey guys, here's some bad words you shouldn't say. It's just kind of cringe and counterproductive, I think, you know. I don't know where they got it from. They probably got sent to them or something, you know.
Called anti-racism and language experts.
Right, okay.
One being Ai Taniguchi, a linguist and an associate language studies professor with the University of Toronto, who says that being an English speaker doesn't entail that you necessarily know the racist etymology automatically.
No, and I don't care what the racist etymology of blindsided is.
Yes.
I mean, okay, that's fair enough, but like, I don't know, I think it's worth, like, it's interesting to understand. Like, for example, right, I might call a spy a spook, right? Obviously, over here, that wouldn't. There's even a program called Spooks, which is about MI5 spies over here. But like, obviously, in some places in America, that was genuinely like a racial slur that was used. You know, even if it was a black spy, I would over here because it doesn't have the same connotation over here. But over there, obviously, the word spook has historically been used as a racial slur. So, you know, context matters, right? Imagine speaking English and not being a master of slur etymology. Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing I'm interested in. I want to know which words are racist so I can say them more, obviously.
So the English people need to be taught properly how to use English. She acknowledges, or is it he or she acknowledges, that obliviousness to the etymology doesn't automatically make you a bad person. So that's good, quite right. And
well,
it shows
lucky for us.
It shows why this entire article is pointless from the very start.
Yeah.
But she proceeds to say that she proceeds to say this, or is it he or she? I really have no idea. They. I didn't know it was racist does not eliminate the pain of the hearer. As language users, we have the social responsibility to monitor the impacts our utterances have on others, especially when it involves a marginalised group.
No. Now what?
I refute.
Listen, I'm sorry, right? I'm going to have to side with the fellas here. Like, that is some fucking bullshit, right? Like, yeah, of course, have a conscientiousness about you. Do you know what I mean? Of course, have a degree of conscientiousness. But, like, I don't know. I've got to respect that, okay? Listen, I got to respect that. The way he just goes, no. I think conscientiousness is important and you should be respectful to people, okay? But the other thing to bear in mind is that in some cases, you're not going to know unless someone tells you. And if it's words that you think are innocuous or you don't know, then yeah, of course you're going to have to be informed. But that should be a case of like a case-by-case basis, right? Because if a word like lame, you know, that in common parlance, it's very rare you're going to come across someone that's going to get super triggered about you using the word lame. But obviously, if you've got a friend that doesn't like it and they say, oh, hey, can you not use that word around me? Yeah, of course, like, do your best to, like, not use that term around them because you don't want to upset your friend or whatever, you know? But yeah. Can you imagine getting Rosenbaum tatted on you? Hey, I don't have to imagine. Yeah, just don't say it around them. But, like, you know, I'm not going to not say lame just because some friend of mine, you know, just because some disabled friend of mine is like, oh, could you not use that word around me? You know, like, it's such a nothing word. Do you know what I mean?
Use.
So not knowing the context of the word, of course, doesn't make you a bad person. Every rational person knows this to be true. It's equally true that a person who takes offence may have misinterpreted the language being used, or more specifically, the intention of the user, and thus taken offence from nothing. So where this is going to go... Which is what
I think is a summary of all of
Yes. I mean, shall we just get straight to what they're actually saying about the words? So let's start with blackmail, blacklist, and black sheep. So the issue here is that these are all negative terms, says Joseph Smith, an anti-racism...
Nothing to do with race.
But it connotes evil, distrust, lack of intelligence, ignorance, a lack of beauty, I imagine, and the absence of white.
That's not what it means.
Not so subtle race baiting here.
That's not what it means.
I mean, blackmail, like, the idea of black being some form of bad or evil, is that related to race? I don't believe it's related to race, is it? I don't think like black and white, the idea of good versus evil, black versus white, is that related to race? I don't believe it is, personally. Yes, dark versus light, right? You know, like you look out at night and you wouldn't know what was going on. You'd be like, oh, it's a bit scary out there. There's probably evil things lurking out there. The writer has just applied modern racist terminology to a thing that has existed since before the concept of race was ever a thought about. Yeah, like the reason we associate black with evil and bad is because traditionally, my understanding, I'm not an expert, but we'd look out at night and we wouldn't be able to like see what was out there. So we'd put our fears onto that night and we'd think of it as evil and bad, you know, because we can't see. And obviously the night is black. Maybe, is that something to do with it? This seems like a massive stretch, okay?
Means you liars. This lowering of blackness on the spectrum with regards to value was developed further in the wake of the transatlantic slave trade. Nice reach.
Yes. Well, for a start, I'd wonder what spectrum do they have in mind, I wonder. Sounds almost like he's pointing to a caste system, which would figure because that seems to be what the intersectionalists want.
I mean, before the English-speaking people ever met a black person, they described someone who was evil as black-hearted.
Mm.
To blackmail someone was described as blackmail. To put someone on a blacklist or be the black sheep of the family is nothing to do with race.
Mm.
It was to do with bad. Just that's it.
Yes, yeah, that it wasn't exclusively essentially about race. But
No.
the next bit is quite interesting. Black became associated with a particular group of people, and that group of people received all that negative connotation. That's why we try to move away from these kinds of terms. Well, that was certainly true at one time.
Maybe.
But is this the case now?
No.
No. I mean, blackness for the last couple of decades has pretty much been a descriptive term used predominantly in cultural criticism by black people in an overwhelmingly positive way in the last 5 years or so.
But this is important, though, because there are different senses in which words are transmitted. And what they're suggesting...
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're trying to say racism solved, actually. We're all gravy now. No more problems. Let's just, let's just move forward. Remember when Carl Sargon of Akkad said that to a bunch of alt-writers, he said, "You're acting like a bunch of white N-words," and he was somehow trying to claim that it was fine because he was talking to the alt-right. It's like a more severe version of Vosh's tactical N-word. Anyway,
thing is that there aren't. If I were to say, oh, God, I don't have a ready example, but there are senses in which words like theyre, in fact, there. Which way am I using the word there in isolation? You don't know. There are lots of different senses, and it requires the context of the rest of the sentence to know what I'm saying when I say the word there. Am I saying over there, or there is, or there possessively? There are lots of different ways of saying a word that sounds in one particular way. And so the idea that they can just sit there and go, well, that word is bad. Blackmail has black in it. Yeah, but what sense am I using it in? Am I using it to refer to a black person? Then no, then shut up.
Language, when completely severed from the intention of how the word is applied, is completely impotent.
Yes.
But this is basically an attempt to give words almost metaphysical causality.
Yeah, well, I think this...
What does that mean? Metaphysical causality? What's that all about then? How are we only 4 minutes through this video?
This comes from Frege, actually, and his semantics that I've been studying recently for some reason.
Nerds.
Yeah, so what they're trying to do is essentially trying to find an objective meaning of a sentence decontextualized from the speaker. Yeah, but we can't use that word, John. Michael. Yeah, maybe you can, but we can't. But no, they're trying to find like an objective way of understanding a sentence outside of a context. And the thing is, such a thing just isn't possible. Again, like even if you'd say like the cat is sat on the mat, maybe I'm using that as like a code to say I've got someone behind me with a gun to my back, and you don't know. It might be deliberately incoherent, but you wouldn't know from just taking the words out of context and trying to ascribe to them an objective meaning. And even then, there are so many presuppositions based on that. Who knows? So this is total nonsense. Sorry, and I'm going.
I mean, to be honest, the reason these people are so angry is they've had some of their favourite words taken away. Okay, there's a few words they like. You really aren't allowed to say now. You definitely can't say now, or you're getting a lot of trouble. So any attempt to take any other words away, they just absolutely lose it. I don't know. Look, it's cringe. That's how I look at it, right? Coming up with these lists for content of words that are a bit problematic now. It's just cringe and silly. It's a waste of time, And I kind of look at it and I think, well, yeah, I'm going to keep saying those words. I don't care. And obviously, this is just turning into content, but it's a little bit of an overreaction. IMHO.
It's a massive regress, isn't it? But I mean, what do you think of the term blacklist in particular?
Well, I don't think it means black people.
No, no. I mean, it's the claim here is that the term black has a negative connotation, but actually, there are examples where the opposite is true. Well, not least because, of course, you can have a positive understanding of black culture, but also, or like Black American Express card. Like that only has overwhelmingly positive connotations unless you are a Marxist and you hate capitalism. To have a Black American Express card means that you are quite literally amongst the most privileged people in society.
But has anyone pointed out that sounds similar to blackmail, and perhaps that's bad?
Well, someone would point that out, and they would be moronic to do so.
They would.
Shall we move?
Yeah, I mean, but then I guess black has got other meanings beyond just scary or bad or whatever, right? You know, the black card, like black can also exhibit like sleekness or what's the right word? What's the right word? Like, you know, sleek or sharp or something like that. Black mold. You make me think of Resident Evil 7. Exclusiveness. Oh yeah, also yeah, being in the black. In terms of like a financial thing, being in the black is a good thing, right? Black beauty, luxury. Yeah, it's like luxury. Black is considered luxurious. But yeah, from a financial perspective, being in the black is good. And what's that to do with? Not that BBC Peacecraft, no, come on now, what are you talking about? You catch my drift though. Black clothes. Yeah, opposite of being red. And anyway.
Move on to ghetto and inner city.
Yes.
Yes. The Smith says terms like ghetto and inner city grew out of the Industrial Revolution in North America. The word ghetto also has a painful historical root in Europe during the Holocaust and was likely derived from Jewish settlements in Italy centuries ago. Ghettos and inner cities were typically seen to be places where less refined people lived, the people who weren't up to date culturally, development-wise, he said.
Okay. Correct.
Yes. But does that immediately mean that the people who use the term ghetto in ghettos are participating in the problem?
I've failed to believe there is a problem. If we need to define an area in a city where people aren't up to date culturally, development-wise, we're going to call it a ghetto.
Yeah.
You know, if people are upset by that, too bad.
Well, the American, should say, cultural content that I'm familiar with involves using the term ghetto relatively frequently, and it's not entirely negative. So
Listen, I really mocked this guy last time, but he's growing on me, to be honest. This guy's growing on me. I'm not going to lie. I like his hair now. Flock of Seagulls hair. I'm a big fan. He's kind of gone for the old spiky look. Do people still use the word ghetto? I thought ghetto was like considered to be like quite a like I wouldn't use the word ghetto because it's got a lot of connotations, right? Like there's women that are called ghetto, and normally that just means like a black woman, but like a skanky black woman or something, right? Yeah, I don't have a problem. Like I don't think there's many circumstances that I have to use the word ghetto to describe something. What's wrong with inner city though? Inner city's fine, isn't it? I thought that was a more politically correct way of saying ghetto, but I guess that's a problem now too. Oh, okay. Well, again, it's context, isn't it? You know, a fuck ton of times you confuse racism for classism. There probably is a degree of that, yeah. Hood. Can I say hood? Do I have the H pass? They use a signal to refer to black areas. I guess it's about context, yeah. Like if I said inner city, if I said like, you know, inner city children are underprivileged and need more funding, I don't think anyone would take issue with that, would they? You know? But if someone was like, oh, that person, I wouldn't hire them, they're from the inner city, right? That's probably a different context, and you'd be like, wait, what's that about? Thanks, Forever Wild. Nobody gives a frosted fuck about minorities in a negative way if they're rich and have an upper social class standing. Hot take, but I think you're onto something there. Racism and classism are really linked in the US. Context is everything because most of the time it's both. Yeah, if you're arguing for positive change, it probably doesn't matter. Pretty much any word associated with where black people live is used as a dog whistle, so that doesn't make the word unusable. Yeah, there we go. There's the take. Okay, so yeah, even in this, it's overzealous in some of the things it's saying.
Sometimes it's positive. Like sometimes they actually refer to these places and almost as a place of home.
Well, that's because it is where their home is. And they call it ghetto music, ghetto culture, you know, ghetto fashion.
Yeah.
And this is cool and new and subversive.
So where I imagine...
Wait a second, though. Ghetto fashion is an externally applied term, though, isn't it? I don't think that's a term. I don't think people walk around. Like, so I see in chat, someone might go, I grew up in the ghetto, and that would obviously be, you know, fine. But it's when people say things like, I don't trust people from the... Or that person is dressed all ghetto. I don't know.
And they're actually trying to go with this is saying, well, because obviously that they would say counter to that oh no, it's fine in that context, but it's just the whiteys can't say it.
So now that, yeah, exactly, but now the context matters, you see.
Yes, the context
now it can't
matters
just be
now.
taken out of context and be given an objective definition of meaning.
So this is complete rubbish. So if we move on to spooky, which was, of course, discussed
Oh, really?
very, very recently.
Oh, God,
yes.
no.
Apparently, the term...
This is absolutely stupid, right? You do not need to stop saying spooky. No one needs to stop saying spooky, okay? We need to stop this pattern of desperately trying to slurify things which aren't really slurs anymore, okay? Why do that? Why do that, you know? Listen, Vitoids are good enough at coming up with slurs on their own. They managed to turn jogger into a slur, for God's sake. So don't give them easy ammo.
Spook used to refer to a ghost spite or something that's strange. Well, no, I'll rephrase that. The term spook has a history of being an anti-black slur when white soldiers began calling fellow black soldiers spooks during World War II. Now, I had no idea this happened.
No, this is American imperialism. The words spook and spooky are going to doubtless go back into the mists of time in medieval England and beyond. And I don't care what they do in America about it. You know, when we talk about spook and spooky, we mean ghosts and things like that in Halloween and things like that.
Yes, and I will
don't care about your opinions.
Yes, and I will continue to use the term spooky in that precise manner.
Yes.
Screw your feelings.
How many black people know that?
Almost none.
Yeah, how many black people know that, oh, well, this is what the anti-black slur that American soldiers...
I imagine even less of them actually care.
It might be to you, but to me, for example, if I say spook, if I'm talking about a spy and I say spook, that would be totally uncontroversial over here. Look, let me show you, okay? Look at this. This is the program I was talking about. Look, literally called Spooks. Yeah, this is it here. This is the program. So, yeah. Americans see this and literally lose their minds. But yeah, over here it means spy. So, yeah, it's got different contexts everywhere, right? The good trains have white smoke and the bad trains have black smoke. Oh my God. That's crazy. People take things so overboard, don't they? It's out of control sometimes.
Absolutely.
But the next one is actually quite funny though. This is sold down the river.
Okay, I can guess where.
Yes, and apparently it has always literally been the process of selling a slave down the river during the transatlantic slave trade, as if this process has never happened at any other point in history.
Well, I mean, there were lots of people sold down rivers all over Europe by the Vikings.
Yes.
Just in case that's something we're allowed
but
to point
to
out.
sell someone down the river must be directly related to the transatlantic slave trade, commonly used to express betrayal.
Again, another American imposition on us.
Yes. So let's move on to grandfathered in.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the phrase? Betrayal, jeopardy, slave trade. I don't think there's any problem using this. Look, I cannot imagine, right, that there's a situation where you say, oh, that I got sold down the river by this person, and a black person is going to be upset by it, okay? I just don't see it, right? I just fail to believe that there's any more than like 5 black people that would genuinely get upset if you were to use the phrase sell someone down the river in their presence, okay? Now, look, I know that's a hot white boy take, okay? If you're sat there and you're black in chat, feel free to let yourself know and disagree. But I just don't think that on the grand scheme of things, okay, black people are going to be deeply upset by this phrase, okay? I think they got other things to worry about, right? I think that there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's probably of concern other than this fairly innocuous phrase, which everyone understands to mean, they betrayed me, And I think that, in fact, so few people know what the historical background is that you're just literally slurifying this phrase, Yeah, thrown under the bus is probably more common anyway, but wait until you find out where that's from, okay? Wait until you find out where that's from, then you're in big trouble, all right? That's an anti-gamer slur.
How is that an offensive phrase?
I'd never actually heard of it, but apparently, it modernly refers to someone or a business being exempt from new rules and continue operating as is. It dates back to a 19th century policy called the Grandfather Clause, which indirectly stops black Americans from voting by limiting eligibility to only those whose ancestors could vote. Again,
Imagine having to explain it this much as well, right? Like, I've never heard of anyone using this phrase anyway, right? But imagine if you said grandfathered into someone and they were like, could you not use that around me, please? It's very offensive to black people. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. How come? And you go, well, it dates back to a 19th century policy called the Grandfather Clause, and it indirectly stopped black Americans from voting by limiting eligibility to only to those whose ancestors could vote. Like, imagine having to actually explain that to someone. Do you know what I mean? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. You'd be embarrassed, wouldn't you? You'd be embarrassed if this upset you because of this very niche, unknown historical relevance of it. I've never even heard it. I've never even heard it used before. Grandfathered in. I've never heard of that. Do people use that? Sounds like a boomer phrase.
No idea. I'm pretty
And
sure.
I very much doubt anyone in the modern era knows that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, again, I think as we can probably see by this point, so bloody what?
Yeah.
Even if that is the case, if we're seriously going to go back to, if we're going to embark on tracing every single word back to its oppressive foundations, and I'm pretty sure you could find some microaggression in something. We're going to have to do this with quite literally every word.
Okay.
Is
it used a lot in America? That's interesting. In any case, again, I just fail to believe that people know enough about this history to be upset by it. You know, I don't know. Maybe some people are. Apparently, they asked a bunch of black people about what they didn't like. But I think, you know, on the grand scheme of things, I don't know. Does anyone get upset by it? Did anyone know that this is the history of it? I appreciate that you're not Blackpool, but you could, you know, like I can use like some degree of insight into like roughly figure out like, you know, having you know, known black people and whatnot. Just having like a rough idea of kind of the things that, you know, I think something like this upsetting you would be someone who's like extremely sensitive, you know, or like is some historian, or there'd have to be a combination. There'd have to be a combination of obviously black and you know, in-depth historical knowledge about the etymology of popular phrases, and also extremely sensitive to get upset by this, I think, you know.
ever existed.
I just refuse flat categorically to be language police like this.
Yes.
Do not care. If you're offended by any of these words, go cry about it.
Yes. Can we move down to Brainstorm? It's a little bit further down because
Okay, hang on, let me see if I can guess. Brainstorm.
Who's this going to offend?
So this is going to be surrounding the concept of neurodivergence.
It says
Yes.
it's offensive for the brain damaged.
So for every leftist activist,
Yes.
this is an offensive term.
no.
This, as you rightly said, this has been pointed out by the neurodiversity movement, despite the fact that the neurodiversity
God.
movement itself does not recognise the idea of a damaged brain.
Yeah, all brains are equal, surely.
There are no disabilities, only differences.
But
that's literally their position.
Even then, brainstorm is not a negative or pejorative term. Like a brainstorming session is where everyone gets around, thinks about things, throws out ideas, and tries to figure out whatever the subject is they're talking about. It's a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's not pejorative. It's not saying, oh, you're an idiot or your brain is damaged or anything like that.
Yeah, but there's an implied.
I mean, I can see the offensive people who can't see. Look, I'm sorry, okay? Listen, if you're blind and you're upset by this, I'm sorry to tell you, okay? I'm sorry to tell you, but like, listen, they've got some other problems to deal with first, all right? Before we get to this little before we got a little blind spot around this issue, I think. But yeah, I just think that you're not hiding to nothing with this sort. Like, you're not going to get people to stop saying blind spot anytime soon. You're literally not hiding to nothing. You just look deranged when you try and push stuff like this. You're better off focusing on actual like stuff, right? On actual meaningful. If you're concerned for the plight of blind people, right? Here's my advice to you. Right? There's about 1 million things on this planet that are genuinely ableist towards blind people, okay? I'd strongly recommend going and focusing on that, all right? That's what I'd recommend to you if you're really that bothered about the plight of blind people. Do you know what I mean? Come on now. Let's be fucking real for a second, all right? Jesus Christ.
Judgment that brain damaged people can't brainstorm. which surely
Says who?
which would of course depend on how they're damaged, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're literally unable to communicate, then I guess maybe. But if they're unable to communicate, how did they get offended by it in the first place? But no, I don't think there's any implication in there that brainstorm means that brain damaged people can't participate.
Yeah, I mean,
No way.
it gets pretty just desperate and boring from this point. I mean, dumb and lame.
Which are just
Oh,
ancient
God, here we
terms that
go.
mean you can't speak and you can't walk.
Oh, this is the
Yes, I mean,
classic.
dumb is of course, well, the actual definition is, well, someone who can't speak.
Yes.
And it's now used to refer to someone who isn't particularly bright or intelligent or whatever. And apparently the offence here is basically when someone is accused of being, well, I suppose this is the case of lame, actually, someone who's boring or unexciting. But that's got nothing to do with the word. That's because you're
I need to speed this up
making
anyway. I've
an
got my
observation
podcast
that they're
soon.
boring and unexciting, and that's the part that hurts. So
Well,
that
they
adheres
can-
to the intention, not the word.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to give up a perfectly functional word that describes something in the world that I want to describe just because someone might be offended that they're not very interesting.
Yes.
They can just learn how to be more interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, but develop some charisma.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, but it's been used to describe something that's boring and unexciting. They are right when they say that. But it's like, look, sorry, just learn to be less boring and more exciting.
Yes. And perhaps they wouldn't come up with such, I suppose, tedious articles such as this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a very
Yeah,
very
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Paul School. Yeah, liberals are like, no, we won't spend money making the street accessible to blind people, but we will tell you to stop saying blindsided. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the term grandfathered in is commonly used in corporate sphere for say a phone plan that's no longer available to the public but cannot be purged from an account for legal reasons. Ah, yeah, I know exactly. I used to work in the telecoms industry. I know exactly what you're talking about. Those hanger-ongers. And you're like, please upgrade. This is like an old plan. They're like, no, I like my plan. I like my plan. I got to pay $5 a month and I get 100 minutes and I'm happy with that. It's like, yeah, but you could pay $7 a month and you get all this extra stuff. No, I'm going to stick with where I am. I'm quite happy, thank you. Oh, oh my God. I mean, yeah, obviously, like, to me... Wait. Okay, no, it does say when used casually. I don't think using it casually is a problem. But yeah, if you call like a disabled person dumb and lame, that's got a different connotation, sure.
Start, I think. The last two are tone deaf and crippled.
Again, literally descriptive terms that actually have a purpose.
Yes.
If you can't determine a particular kind of musical pitch, you need to know that.
Yes.
And if you are crippled, that literally means you have a limb that doesn't work.
I mean,
Okay.
tone is a matter of musical expression. To not be able to hear a certain matter or certain type of musical expression is actually a form of deafness.
But they're acting like these words are moral judgments.
I mean, look, Cashman suggests using words like musically disinclined. I mean, come on. Like, tone deaf just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And now you want to use musically disinclined. That is a literal meme, isn't it? Jeez, come on, please. You got to come. If you want alternatives, fine, okay, but come up with better alternatives, please.
And they're not moral judgments. And even in ancient times when the word crippled is used, it's not like saying
worries,
that
have a
person's
good one.
bad person
Catch you
because they're
later.
crippled. It's just say, well, something unfortunate has happened to them.
They're not moral judgments, but the important part is that they must be for them.
But it's interesting how they say, well, maybe I would use disability or mobility issue.
Mm.
Well, how is that going to accrue any less intonation on the term in exchange for crippled? I mean, crippled to them only sounds like a bad word because it describes something that's negative. You say, well, we're going to use a different word that doesn't have the same connotations, which is going to be mobility issue. That's just going to end up being crippled. Like the new crippled is going to be, mobility issue. If for some reason you happen to say it that way, but that's ridiculous.
But then you can start taking offence to the word mobility.
Exactly.
Yes, if you happen to be immobile in any way at all.
Exactly. The word itself is merely a token that symbolizes the meaning into which we infuse it. Changing the token without changing the meaning doesn't make the word less offensive.
Yeah. Offence, in short, is indeterminate. You cannot objectify it in words. Stop policing our thoughts. Go away.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
There we go.
We've got loads on there and it's all really, really good. For example, we have regular...
There we go. Damn, it was only 15 minutes in the end. I thought it was going to be late to the podcast, but there we go. What do you reckon, folks? Who enjoyed that? I knew I was going to not completely disagree with them because they were, it's like they're saying water's wet. It's like, they're saying, yeah, water's wet. It's a bit kind of cringe, isn't it? Some of the stuff they said was stupid, but whatever. They ignored all the terms relating to Native Americans. I think you'll find the correct term is indigenous people. Thank you. Oh, I just outwoked you. Oof, how does that feel? How does it feel to get outwoked by Chud Logic? You just got woked. Oh. Kind of annoying how Budget Eddie Redmayne tries so hard to sound intelligent. Oh. That was a good meme. Anyway, there we go. End of discourse, end of discussion.
If I was a corny white guy, would I have bars?
Hey,
Ask yourself that.
Let's go.
What corny white guy do you know can do this?
I'm going to say the N-word. I'm going to say the N-word, okay? So guess what? If you language police me,